Hello everyone, we're just here starting a double up $10 turbo event. And yeah, I guess fine like for sharing some of my experience with different formats and how to play them. Yeah, I just find it kind of easier just to sort of play and like sort of just share the insights as they kind of come up more so than, just kind of like showing the print without being a practical setting. Very this first I can kind of see an example, with it being the powered structure, the top three people double their money, everyone else gets nothing. The hands like the A6 offsuit just play really badly multi-way, so that's why I decided to just fold it here. Because if you hit the ace, someone likely has a better ace, and if you don't, well, that's not really great either. I mean, if it was a suit ace, I would probably like call or free bet there, or free bet squeeze, but yeah, it's another case where you are going to be a little bit tighter in general. Playing these double up sort of events, they're definitely less flashy, let's say, than the usual like other formats, but and maybe the RI is not as high as say MTTs, but it's also a bit lower variance and be a way to kind of safely build up your bankroll a bit because, well, just the players just going to be making lots of really big mistakes because it's a case where like strong players normally won't play sit and goes much just because it's kind of a sold format. But okay, at least its own opportunity where okay, if no good players are playing it because they know like that okay, if our people go there and play it, then there's no point playing it. They kind of creates that opportunity where you're able to just kind of play only against really bad players and just really get a lot of value against them. And really the main disadvantage of double up format is yeah, we see this guy going for a double barrel here, um, in position to kind of make sense. And okay, it turns out it's a set of fours. So we can make a note that yeah, he bets half pots, at least on the turn with his sets. So it's kind of like his value bet sizing. I think that's like another part of it as well, just like taking notes on the players. Granted, we don't have the biggest sample size to work with here by any means, but it's just a way to be able to observe tendencies you could kind of use later on. And if you are enjoying the video, yeah, do make sure to leave a like to it. Also, you can subscribe in case you are relatively new to the channel and you want to see more stuff like this. So, I've kind of been mixing up the content a little bit, like sort of how the Pure I was just showing a lot of different stuff in Jito Wizard, but I do think that it's good to have a distinction between, okay, this is what works in theory and this is what it's actually like in practice, because I find it's very often different. Like, for example, this is never going to be a bluff this raise. It's always going to be a very strong hand, like at least a set minimum. Um, so I don't think even two pair raises. Yeah, so he just has a straight, exactly. So, like, as soon as he raised, I immediately thought 8-5. That was the first hand I thought he had in that spot. So we can also like make a note like these are like min raises with basically with the nuts on river. So it means that when he does this mean like fold like very, very tight. If this was suited, I would squeeze, but because it's not suited, I'm just going to fold. And yeah, that's I've had some different sessions. Like sometimes I'll just be very aggressive. Like I had the session I played a while back, which I actually was thinking of doing a video on as well. Like I might even cover it at some point on the channel. That one where I was basically just like raising like just pretty much every single time because the guys were just folding virtually every single time. I was just taking the blinds over and over. And they were never free betting either. They were only just cold calling in the rare case they did continue. Instead of like winning this tournament like in a hyper turbo where I, just raising every hand, they just kept folding. It was just kind of funny at some point. But okay, this one's a little bit different. Like, yeah, it's a turbo format, but it's only 5 minute blinds and not like the 3 minute blinds or hyper turbos. Yeah, which bets half pot. Like this guy has a five or better every time, pretty much. Like especially when there's no flush draws, just very, very underbluff spot, I think, with the paired board. This guy jams. I don't know what he jams with. King. Okay, so the guy ends up having a better five, but it chops because of the seven. So, well, ignition luck. Let's put it like this. But okay, now because this guy is raised is limping nearly every hand, I'm just going to ISO with the ace-6 suited. It's a hand that plays reasonably if it gets called, but also can fold quite easily to a free bet. Well, actually, it's kind of like a four bet. When this guy limps, I just tend to treat people's limps as if it was an initial raise, and I find that works fairly well for me. Queen 9-4, these are cards actually are pretty good for our range, at least we're in the button. So I think we can actually bet fairly small in this spot. Actually, probably even four might be a better sizing. Kind of the backdoor flush draw, ace five. So we're not dead if he calls, but yeah, he just is defending way, way too wide of a range. So therefore we can just take it down a large part of the time. This one, we're just going to use a standard 2.5 big blind sizing. That's what the solver recommends for these stack depths. I think when you get to like 25, 30 big blinds, it comes like, yeah, 30 big blinds comes like 2.3, and where like 20 or less, it starts to become like 2.1 is sort of the adjustments you make. But also, keep in mind you do have different stack sizes, so you are looking, what the effective stack is when you are making these sizing decisions that were. So yeah, it's pretty quiet so far. This guy's probably going to limp. I mean, at 9-4 suited, you could raise it. You could also limp it. Okay, the price is so good here that we're not really folding any two cards pretty much at this point. Actually, if he bets really big, like four big blinds, we actually might fold. But okay, here, I think I kind of like actually checking back some of these weaker top pairs in a way. Um, and yeah, I mean, this is a very good run out. So I think we can even turn a pair into a bluff here, and we're just going to fold a lot of hands at this point. And if he calls, like we can still kind of raise, but if he raises, we obviously just fold here. Um, but it's all I know is like the small blind often will play very passively and very face up out of position. So you're often able to take a lot of pots that maybe don't belong to you either just by raising over them pre or just like calling us or outplaying them later. And again, just sort of an example, yeah, like the pocket freeze, you're just, yeah, technically you're sort of getting like kind of the implied odds to hit the set, but it's just not worth it in this sort of satellite format. The freeze is kind of clear fold, yeah, he ends up having aces, so yeah, it really would have been a pure set mine in that sense. Queen 5 suited, yeah, pretty easy raise. We'll just do the same bet size as before. Okay, but this guy limps, which kind of makes things interesting. I mean, what I do is I actually will generally fold quite a bit against the limps, which might seem a little bit weird, but it's just a case where I think that, in these multi-way pots, you're just going to kind of get owned a lot of the time. Like some random sort of thing is going to happen. You're going to miss fast row at a time. So especially in the double ups, I think that having the stack preservation is more valuable. And yeah, it's frustrating when you sort of hit like top two here, but that doesn't really happen very often. Like even when it does, like he has a flush draw, he still does have a lot of equity. So yeah, it's a case where you don't really care too much. It's gonna be like just folding like a pretty wide range against a limp even in position. And also when the guy raises, like you can't really continue a queen three five suits like a little bit too loose. So you're just kind of saving that little blind here and there when you just kind of fold tightly when it goes multi-way and like only two of the hands that really play well post flop, like the suited connected hands, the suited aces, like the pocket pairs, this sort of thing. So this guy bets three big blinds from the small blind. I mean, I think its sizing is a bit big on king three deucing. You could probably just go one or one and a half big blinds would have been fine, but okay, it gets through in the end. It is true that the deuce three yeah, doesn't really hit the big blinds like calling ranges as well. Like when the small blind raises, that's another story. I think it might actually be a limp pot there, but anyway, let's see how the next one to play out. I mean, that's what I noticed. Center follows a pretty tight aggressive strategy in general. But this guy insta checks, you just know to hit this board pretty well. So this should just be a check. With range from a small blind, but this guy bets two. This is a very easy spot for this guy to raise a large frequency of hands. Mid side's just call, which on a run out like that does kind of cap him a bit in a way. Like best hand he probably calls like 6-7 or something, maybe. But even that hand maybe should raise a decent chunk in it when this guy donks out. Oh, not donks, but like leads out. But this guy just insta folds. So actually would have been a decent spot for a bluff raise, except that this guy's never bluffing on that four liner. A queen jack you can kind of mix here. Yeah, I think I am going to raise it just because these players are so bad. But there are settings where I do just fold that hand in this spot because it just doesn't play well multi-way. But if you think you're going to get it heads up, then it's a decent shot, I think. This guy's never going to fold anything. He goes for a weird min free bet. I mean, we're getting the right odds even against aces, so almost so we're never really folding. We do pick up an open ender. And against the stronger end of it, you're just going to generally call if they bet. But the guy checks, and I mean, we're definitely firing here, I think. In terms of the sizing, yeah, I think that in position we can probably go about half pot or so, seems about right. I mean, no, and there was a time where I was just kind of going for just small sizings, like just out of habit in almost every flop. Like it's going like 25, 33% pot all the time. And just kind of using a small size saying they'd overfold to it. But yeah, lately I've sort of stayed a little bit more and yeah, sort of started to incorporate some different sizings. Yeah, there's 26 behind. We do want to get it all. Like if we go like half pot here, we just set ourselves up very well to kind of get his whole stack by the river. We do have the literal nuts at this point. So yeah, we just have to hope he hits some really monster hand and that we get paid. Like he has aces, I don't think he's ever folding here. But that card is scary because it means that his sets now just became full houses. If he jams, like we have to call, like we have the nut straight. And yeah, he has aces, so yeah, we really cracked him really good. I mean, he should just use a bigger sizing, like especially out of position. He should have just gone like 10 big blinds, and then he could have, he would have got me to fold. But that's the correct play in that spot. We got a little bit lucky, but he also just played it very, very badly. In all honesty, like he should definitely lead out that flop, for example. That was a big mistake on his part. And yeah, this guy goes for like the min free bet. Don't know what exactly that means, but yeah, we'll just put min free bet versus hijack min raise. Got a monotone flop. This guy bet something, bet one, which is standard. Yeah, this guy raises big. I know that on these sort of like these low stakes garbage plays will often like raise a queen in that spot. So it doesn't necessarily mean he has the nuts by any means there, but when they bet on the river, if he raises river, he clearly has the nuts. But yeah, the guy ends up having two pairs, so I don't know, maybe this guy had some he kind of had ace queen, but yeah, probably just had some sort of like pair a with a diamond in there that he was just overvaluing. When this guy limps, I think Jack A, it doesn't play that great post flop, but the price is so good that we are probably just going to limp behind. And yeah, this is a pretty good flop for us. Don't think we're going to really check raising. Check call is just fine in this spot. The sizing a little large. It does feel like he has a lot of ace X when he uses this sizing, but okay, we're not really going anywhere. I don't think out of position this is just a check. Like I think that if the pot gets too big, you're only going to be up against a queen or a king, but this is one where we can kind of just sort of go really big and just sort of abuse the fact that they're just going to think we're trying to steal because we're being a chop. So they're going to hopefully pay us off. Okay, they don't pay us off, so that's just unlucky for us. But okay, I mean that river card. Honestly, if they weren't paying us off that, they weren't paying us off on the river anyway. Our run out, so it is what it is. This kind of a spot where you could ISO. I mean, the guy is opening too much, but not like way too much. A6 does kind of play badly. Yeah, I'm actually going to fold this one just because I think this hand plays very badly multi-way. And this guy can also easily rejam if we ISO and force us to fold or. And so, yeah, kind of like, again, it's just finding those spots to kind of save money. Like, it sounds weird because people, I think, focus more on, yeah, finding ways to sort of, make my, like, get the most value. But I think it's just important to, yeah, find the spots to try to save as well. And, you see this guy did limp ace king offsuit, so we actually made like a rather ingenious fold there. Technically, we probably should have made like 2.1 to 2.3, but yeah, let's put limps like ace king off. We can put that as a note. And also, Jack 10 is a hand that plays quite well multi-way, so that's kind of another reason why I just did the lazy, just min raise kind of size there. Because yeah, we're pretty happy if he calls. Like this is just it's a pretty good flop for our range. We do have like double back doors, so we can check out a position. That's maybe what we should do. Multi-way. We do have a little bit of equity. I think I'm going to check, and if button checks, I can sort of fire good turns. This one does bring in a gut shot, so I think that we can sort of fire here. Maybe like half pot is probably a good amount. Because I mean, these guys I don't think have an ace. When this guy checks, they just don't have an ace. Whereas we could check back some aces realistically in that spot. We only have jack high, so we're definitely bluffing here. Question of what size. I kind of like to use a pot size bet for the bluffs. I find can be quite effective because you got a half pot just calling with anything, but if someone make it pot on one, it sort of becomes a tough decision for him. And yeah, if he sort of checks back an ace, it's just like good play by him. But yeah, we do end up getting his garbage pair to fold. And yeah, also the fact that it's kind of like the bubble as well is something that I kind of sort of glossed over in my head mentally, but it is an important point that at the bubble, you do have a lot more of this ICM pressure in that sense. And that means that you can just, yeah, sort of really start to get a little bit more out of line to apply more aggression. But that really works a different way to what you might expect. Like, for example, this guy, he should check range. And this guy can actually just bet one big blind with his entire range, just put a lot of pressure on, and just put him in a really rough spot where even by the river, he has a big bet. He'd even like, have to fold like some very strong hands just based on according to the ICM. Now, of course, this is not what they're doing in practice because these are not, these players probably don't know what ICM stands for in all honesty. But at the same time, yeah, it's sort of something that it's good to know what the theory is at least, and then to know what you're sort of adapting from in a sense. Now, this one where the guy has never raised once, so even though this is a calling hand, his raising range is going to be like aces, kings, queens, ace, king, maybe ace, queen, and jacks. So this just becomes a very easy fold actually in that spot because we're not getting the right equity of that hand against that range. So yeah, in this case, jack six. I mean, we can just sort of apply like just sort of the stack pressure in a way or ICM pressure. But yeah, but I don't really want to get involved in pots with this guy because even though I have a bigger stack and in theory can apply a lot of ICM pressure, these guys just don't care about it. They're gonna like This guy has like a 7, he's just going to call down all the way to the river. So the bluffs are not really going to work that well because the guy's just clearly a complete station. Let's put out as a note actually that he's a station. And yeah, this guy min raise, okay, he just has the 8 every time. Or a 3. He has either an 8 or a 3 every time there when he uses that sizing from the packs we saw before. And yeah, now we get to a point where the players are pretty short stacked. So what we can do is we can let's just let this guy kind of just take all the risk and just sort of sit back. There was a time in the past where I think, oh, on ICM we should just be like raising every hand or jamming every hand and just make him fold very wide. The problem is that A, they weren't falling out, they like falling with random ace-X, random broadways. They were just sort of constantly getting jammed on over and over because they're emotional, rational players. The second point is that there's way too many times around to like aces, kings, ace, king, queens, and then just like end up be going from like being the chip leader, like being able to easily just fold every hand and make the money, to like just sort of being one of the middle stacks, or then like even being a shorter stack. So that's sort of something I realized that it's good to know the theory, but it's also good to realize that your opponents 99% of the time are not going to be following the theory. They just don't care whatsoever, or more precisely, they just don't know it. And so yeah, they're just going to make like very massively negative ICM decisions. But the thing is, they're going to drag you down with those bad decisions. Like they'll make a bad mistake that only is bad for them and for you. It's kind of a case of like the mutual stupidity, kind of like thesis I was sort of developing like a decade ago. But yeah, basically that's kind of the sort of the concept. Like you want to guard yourself against people sort of stupidity when it brings you down along with them. But when it sort of is beneficial to you, like obviously you exploit it to the max. So that's kind of the clear distinction with when to sort of be exploitative, or like more precisely when to sort of throw the theory out the window because it just doesn't apply in the situation. This one obviously very clear check fold, like we're not really going to bluff this one unless it like checks down all the way to the river, then we might consider, but otherwise, no, we just get out of the way, of course. So, I mean, it's actually gone kind of quickly, actually. I mean, a lot of times I play these double ups, there were still 6 players left when you got to the 50, 100 blind level, but yeah, it is what it is. Obviously, we have the nut low, so we fold. And yeah, when these guys like also getting it in, like when they're playing a lot of multi-way pots, it seems like, stupid donking as well, which is, this guy in the button can just raise almost any 2 cards. Then basically, yeah, at this point, you can sort of say that, yeah, these guys are going to find a way to knock each other out. Like they're really trying to like, one up each other, like have an ego battle because it's like a $10 game. So it's like, okay, they care more about inflating their ego than they do about, trying to make money. So we're just going to let them, get in their ego war, like get each other all in, and then when even if the one who is all in and loses, like still, still sort of survives in a way. Well, then in that case, they're going to be a short stack. They're probably going to be jamming super wide. So again, they're just going to get knocked out relatively quickly in most cases. So it means that, yeah, you can actually just take a more passive approach and sort of do the opposite of what Sphere suggests just by kind of reading the route. And yeah, I mean, I noticed my results in these events did kind of get better once yeah, stopped like just trying to like push people around all the time as a big stack and, kind of did a bit more selectively. Like, yeah, this hand technically I should raise, but because these guys are just never folding, I'm just going to, just let them go crazy like this, because at some point there's going to be some all-in confrontation. So, I mean, you can take it too far. Like if, let's say, my stack ends up being only a little bit bigger, I might start to make plays a little more if I'm like close to the stage where I'm like in danger of not making it. So if I got to, 22 and a half big blinds, I said I probably would start to open up a lot more. But yeah, this guy has been raising quite a few more hands. So this one I actually am going to call. I could have also jammed and put a lot of pressure, but the problem is he's just probably calling all his ace-X again. The mutual stupidity situation arises. So I think there's no really to turn into a bluff. The sizing is so ridiculously small. I actually think King X is meant to call with any sort of backdoor equity, which we do have with the 8, so it just becomes a call. But this here, we are going to fold, though, if he bets any sort of normal kind of size. Goes one big blind, almost tempted to raise, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, this guy just clearly had a monster hand, so we just get out of the way. Or he just had a bluff, but yeah, we're not really beating many bluffs there in all fairness. Only like the backdoor heart draws, and there's not going to be that many of them in this range. So anyway, we lose the minimum on that one. And yeah, we can see what happens for the next hands. I mean, we're still chip leaders. Yeah, we can still apply like that pressure if we want to. But yeah, for this video, it's going to take a little bit of a sort of different approach. Okay, when this guy's just jamming it so widely, Like this guy's going to end up all in with someone sooner or later, and we much rather be one of these two faults than for it to be us, as it were. So that's why I'm just going to like fold all the garbage pretty much, and not just raise any two cards. Even though in like the ICM, well, like we can just jam any two cards from any position here pretty much, and that's what you're supposed to do. But it just makes a lot less money in my experience playing these events against bad players than if you, yeah, than if you just sort of play like a somewhat healthier range. I remember actually I read this really nice book on satellite strategy. Actually, it's also like the double up turbo is effectively like sort of a satellite if you sort of took out the late stage. Okay, this hand I think I am going to jam because I shouldn't really be calling with anything in general. But yeah, but sort of the thing with the this Sally Strider book by Dara Kearney, I think Gary Carter also kind of co-authored it as well. But yeah, Dara's like one of the world's leading experts, maybe even the world's leading expert on these sort of satellite double up kind of formats. This one, yeah, we are just going to check. We prefer to check with Sudace, but the offsuit ace is also fine to check here. But basically, yeah, like I kind of just read his book a few times. I found it really helped me in playing these different spots. Ace high. I think you're technically meant to call this sometimes, but I'm just going to fold here. But yeah, actually, you should use a bigger sizing. Then you just pure fold. Whereas if you use like the minimum one, then yeah, some of the ace X will kind of mix. I think in some spots, but I mean, we're obviously not following it. If they go all in, where I mean, this guy jam's kind of weird, but yeah, this one. I mean, you could get fancy away from the raise, but because he never raises, we're just going to jam here and just apply the pressure. Because there are a lot of worse hands that can call as well in this spot, and yeah, he's just very heavily incentivized to fold when you have these two guys who are shorter stacked than him. Like he's at the stage where he can basically just more or less fold to the money. Now at this point, no one is actually free betting us, so I'm actually going to mix it up and not jam, just go for the min race, kind of keep them guessing a little bit. So I like to mix some jams, mix some raises, just to keep them on their toes. But if I can get away with just the min raise and then never free betting, I will tend to go that path a bit more. Let's do it again because even if they jam, we're still chip leader, so we can just kind of push it through. And if he calls, yeah, he just has massive ICM pressure. This board he was going to bet pretty small with your range. Even one big blind is pretty standard for applying ICM pressure. If he jams, it's a very, very weird spot, actually. Because, okay, he decides to call, so I mean, like, it's probably good, but if the pot gets big, it's kind of not good. So I think that just checking here is fine. And then just bluff catching the river free bets like a small to medium size. Because, yeah, he's had a lot of weaker hands that can fire here. Okay, ends up having a nut flush, so just unlucky for us, but is what it is. But yeah, he shouldn't have checked back turn. He definitely should fire turn because he could get paid if he used like a one or two big blind size there. If he'd gone like over half pot, I probably would fold turn exploitatively. But yeah, it's still not such a bad outcome. Yeah, I mean ace king. Obviously, yeah, we're not going anywhere with this. So yeah, we just have a very easy. Actually, let's just rejam. I don't want this guy in the hand. Yes, king queen. Let's hope we don't get screwed. Okay, now it's over. Yeah, it's so many times we got screwed in these double ups, losing some all in while I was ahead, or just losing all the flips. But okay, that one does get through. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this, practical demonstration. Like the main principles are, yeah, like first of all, like just be a bit tighter because it's top three paid, not who has the biggest stack. Like whether you have biggest or third biggest stack doesn't really matter at the end of the day. When the tournament finishes. And yeah, the other principle, like post flop as well, you can kind of sort of just sort of look at the stack size and kind of adapt accordingly. If you're the covering stack, you supply a lot of ICM pressure, like small bet size, like even tiny ones on the flop in turn, and then going really big on the rivers. And yeah, finally, yeah, just sort of like just keeping an eye on like reading the room and realizing what works in theory is not necessarily going to apply in practice. But if you're meant to jam every hand in theory, realize in practice it might be more effective as to min raise if they're never free bet or free bet jamming, and so like adjustments like that, as it were. Because you could kind of see like with that King 7, like if I had jammed that hand and he called, he would have like won. I would have like been out of the tournament because he wouldn't have folded Ace 8 suited because he's never folding that hand ever in my experience. So yeah, it's kind of case where you're sort of able like just to save yourself just by making plays that yeah are very dumb in theory but very smart in practice. Anyway, that's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.